Well, when we get to the final show this season, I'm going to be honest with you, I get a little misty-eyed, right? Here, Mike and I get to come out and hang out every Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30 here at the Post, and now it's the final week of the college football season as we get set for the Rumble in the Rockies on Saturday. That's a 2 o'clock kickoff between the Colorado Buffaloes and the Utes of Utah. Gary and I are going to hit the air along with Andy Lindahl at, go back 2 hours, at noon on Saturday for the broadcast.
Still got it, Mark.
Yeah. That's late season right there. I'm losing my mental acuity. We got Mike Sanford here, the head coach of the Buffaloes. Rod Chance out of the secondary. Coach, he's going to join us. And Nico Reed's going to be with us here as we come to you from the Post Chicken and Beer in downtown Boulder. Yeah, the end of the season. I mean, you put more blood, sweat, and tears in this, especially on a year like this. It gets a little emotional this time of year, doesn't it?
You know, it does. This is, I've said it, this has probably been one of the more challenging on-field seasons that I've been a part of. I've never been a part of a staff where I was an assistant, where the head coach was let go in the middle of the season. I've checked a lot of boxes in my career, but that was a first for me. And then certainly I'd never been an interim head coach. And, as challenging as some of the on-the-field stuff has been, it's been the most rewarding season that I've been a part of, which is, I know it sounds crazy if you're on the outside looking in, but if you know the relationships that are being built and, the kind of the gold that's forged through the fire, there's a lot of that going on in so many different instances. So, yeah, it will be emotional on Saturday.
Yeah. On top of the fact it's senior day, that's always an emotional experience when those guys are going to are out there for the last time. You just touched on something. I think it's maybe we haven't talked enough about that, Mike. And I know when the press conference happened and you were making your first comments as the interim head coach at that point in time, you made a point, I so appreciated that, about my focus is the players. And we know in college athletics, student athletes are always going to be the focus. But you took that to another level at that point in time. And it was so important for you to make sure that those guys navigated this, very troubled waters, if you will. That hasn't been an easy proposition for you. When you've got 100, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys, that had to be very difficult at that point in time. Talk about your kind of how you approach that and kind of how you've kind of worked through the last, 6-7 weeks.
Well, I think it was something that I said at the time. And, the thing that I've probably been most irritated in my coaching career is when somebody has, the platform to speak and then make it about something, and then you live the life in that office and you're like, that's nothing like the reality. Right. So it was almost like personal accountability that I woke up every day and I thought about it. It's not about me. It's about them. Yeah. It's about us, as a growing family. And that's what this has been. What this year's done for me personally is pretty deep in the sense that, I got into coaching originally because of the model my dad was. My father coached he's still coaching in 40 some odd years it's been. And, he modeled in maybe the old way of doing things in the 70s, 80s, 90s. He modeled that this thing really is about pouring your life into the development of young men and caring for them, loving them. And I saw him do that for years. It's why I got in the industry. And then I'll be honest, I kind of got jaded. I went through a point in my career where it was really, rapid growth. I went from, essentially being an offensive quality control coach at Stanford, making $18,000 a year in Palo Alto, California, to all of a sudden being a head coach at 33 years. And there was only about 4 to 6 years that separated that time. And so you start kind of buying into your own self a little bit. This year's been really good. It's been humbling, but kind of in the right way. Not humbling in the way that you're like, I'm not good at this. It's been humbling in the way that this is why I'm in this. Right. It's about these relationships. It's about these players. It's about having some form of impact, and it's been the most rewarding year of my career.
Well, you touch on something. You talk about making a kind of quick rise, and Tad Boyle's got a line to use all the time. He said it's easy to get drunk on your own wine. Right? It's
true.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to hear you talk about that. So many times we preach that concept of really caring about student athletes, as you kind of indicate. A lot of times that's window dressing, to be honest with you, is what it is. The external, when people see the scores of the ball game, everyone goes, well, that's not what we need. Internally, though, when I've talked with the guys, there's been growth with this football team, even though the statistics might not say that. You've seen that internally, I would think.
There's absolutely no question that the growth that I'm seeing, like from individual players, from just the collective group, this was a young team. It was, frankly, it was a fractured team.
Sure was.
Because of, you lose really quality seniors, Nate Lamb and Carson Wells, and you kind of, there's a good crew that you lost there, and then you lose a lot of returning starters. And so, this team inevitably, whoever was going to be the head coach at whatever time throughout the year, it was going to take a path of growth. And the way that they've responded, not only the change that was made, but even to my leadership, I'll forever be grateful to this group of players. And, the thing is, like the external, the scores that are out there, trust me, there's nobody who wants to change that storyline more than I do.
Right.
And I don't want it for me. I want it for them. They're putting everything into it. And I think sometimes when you put all the energy that we're demanding out of them at practice, and we're putting all the energy into a game plan, and then you have a game like you did on last week, that was hard. That was challenging.
Yep.
And we are where we are. And I believe that there are so many different signs of growth that maybe haven't tangibly shown up, in a game like Washington. But I thought it tangibly showed up against arguably the best team in the Pac-12 in the first two quarters against USC.
Yeah, I think so. Well, the thing about it was, and I put a little blurb on and I'm saying this not just because you're sitting here. I said yesterday, I want to thank Mike because of what he has done in a nearly impossible set of circumstances. When you get into that kind of circumstance, what generally happens, and you hadn't been around those situations, I've been around those situations many times in a long career. And what generally happens is the rats start leaving the ship, right? And it's every man for himself. And that's not been the case. And so on behalf of Buff Nation, I want to commend you for that, because I think that's been awesome. Give him a round of applause. I'm telling you, it's been amazing. And I've said many times, whatever goes on down the stretch here and where things end up, wherever this man ends up, going to be a better program as a result of his presence and character and the passion he's brought. So I want to thank you in terms of in regard to Buff Nation. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
You bet. Now I want to talk about you being a goaltender in soccer.
Failed.
Did you guys see this video that came out? Mike's done some great things on the practice field with these guys. In terms of him kind of pouring into them, he's tried to make the game, under circumstances been so tough, trying to make the game fun. And so was it yesterday you guys were doing this?
Yeah, we had a penalty kick shootout yesterday.
Yeah. The World Cup's going on, and you're a soccer fan.
I'm a massive soccer fan.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Really the U.S. national team.
Yeah.
My wife, who's here, and my kids would tell you that I've woken up, 3:30, 4 in the morning to watch some of the early matches. So, but I love. There's nothing in the world that unites the world in one moment like World Cup soccer.
You don't see many guys that are football and football fans. You're kind of a rare breed.
That's right, and fluent in Spanish too. So,
really? Holy cow,
so when we're down in Mexico, usually it coincides. My wife and I go every summer. It coincides with some tournament, and I'm sitting up there talking in Spanish, making friends with all the locals.
Yeah. Have you had a chance you've been here just to get together with Danny Sanchez and talk a little soccer?
I have, just in passing.
Right.
I've been out to 2 matches this year, and I was there for the first half of senior night, or it was senior day, for the Utah match, and I was there for literally one. I mean, it was like 15-minute stretch, 2 Buff goals, and I had to get back for a team meeting, and then I left, and the magic mojo was gone.
Man,
so
see what happens.
I felt guilty. I felt personally very guilty.
Most American football coaches don't even know what the other football is, for goodness sakes. They're so focused on it. So that's separate. So what Mike did, he went out and had guys doing penalty kicks. So somebody was selected to kick, somebody else obviously selected to.
Yeah, it was a player versus a coach, and it was generally speaking in the his position group. So it was Jalen Sami versus Gerald Chapman, and I'll tell you what, for a 342-pound man, Jalen Sami, world-class penalty kick.
I don't think Chapman even moved, by the way.
Yeah, when he had his headsets on, like he had his coaching sets on, I was like, he's got no shot. And then Clay Patterson whizzed one right by Brady Russell.
Saw that.
Which was an inerrant shot by him. He was trying to blast one right at Brady's face and missed, and actually had another world-class lower third level. And then, of course, I was going against.
Who was kicking for you?
Well, that was the problem. It was Cole Becker.
Well,
who grew up playing soccer, and he just
threw the wrong straw there, my friend.
I did, and I chose the wrong side. I told him the original matchup was Noah Hubbard, another one of our kickers, and I'd done a scouting report on his high school career and where his penalty kicks were. But all of a sudden they switched it out, and I was psyched from the beginning.
You had no chance.
No chance.
Whatsoever.
I was done.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The guys have really enjoyed it. What did you do today? Tell folks.
Today, so I don't know if anybody knows, but like down in Pearl Street, there's been the same hot dog stand since 1980.
Yeah.
So Freddie's hot dog stand is actually run. He bought it from the original Freddie, and he's been running the stand. His name's Mike. He's from Jersey.
Right.
So I came down here with Brian McGinnis, and we set it up for the final week of practice. So right after practice was over, we had it all kind of behind curtains, and there was a street vendor waiting to be able to serve everybody some fresh hot dogs. So
awesome.
The guys loved it. I think there's still a line over there. That's why I was running a little bit late. So
because nothing says Thanksgiving like a good tube meat.
Well, I told them that before. I said, for me, my tradition is street meat the day before any major holiday.
Is that right?
And so that's
who knew?
I made that up.
It's a new tradition starting in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. We'll continue here at Buffs Primetime. We're at the Post Chicken and Beer. Been a great host for us all season long. Give them a round of applause and thank you, wait staff here. They've done a great job hosting us all season long. Rod Chance still to come. We've got Nico Reed out of the secondary. He's still to come as well as we continue after a quick break here with Mike Sanford. This is Colorado football from Learfield. The University of Colorado football is brought to us by the Hiltons on Canyon. Are you coming to Boulder for the game? We'll stay at the Hiltons on Canyon, the official hotel of Colorado Athletics. We're back here at the Post Chicken and Beer in downtown Boulder with Mike Sanford. One more segment with the head coach, and we got Rod Chance and Nico Reed coming up. Hey, real quick at the game on Saturday. XL Energy, you probably heard these advertisements on our broadcast before. XL Energy is doing a carbon-free, or going carbon-free, I should say. But a carbon-free future doesn't just happen. We make it happen. Be on the lookout for the QR code on Saturday to pledge to join us building a carbon-free future. It takes all of us, you, us together. And I know we got the stream going on. You can see that. There's the QR code right there. I got a button here.
I'm going to be wearing it.
Are you really?
So somebody can technically, on the TV, zoom in and hit the QR code.
We're going to freeze that. But it's going to be all over the stadium. So you're going to see it. I think you're going to hand it stuff. If you got a good telephoto lens in your phone, you can get it off Mike, obviously. It's going to be on billboards, and I mean, it's everywhere.
The dream is that somebody storms the field after a Buff victory and then takes their phone out and scans it, and then goes ahead and makes the donation right after the game.
That's promotion right there.
That is like 2022 at its finest right there.
So that's what's going on with XL Energy. Be on the lookout on Saturday for that at the game. It's going to be every place, and great work that our friends at XL Energy, a great partner of the Colorado Buffaloes. Senior Day, mentioned that earlier. You got, 18, 19 guys walking out there for the final time. I thought it was good on Tuesday at your press conference. You kind of went down, I guess it was yesterday, went down and talked about every one of those guys. That's always, we talk about the emotions of it. That's an emotional event for those guys because they realize for most of them it's over then.
Yep.
They'll never play football again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my moment, as a senior. It's funny, it coincides with Utah, of all places. So my mother, my dad was the offensive coordinator at University of Utah. They were 10-0.
Okay.
My senior year at Boise State, we were 10-0.
Right.
And I think that's when we were playing 11-game seasons. And my mom came to an 11 a.m. game and walked out. My mom and sister were there for senior day and then went to, and we clinched a perfect season, and then went to my dad's final game in Salt Lake City and drove. And got both of those in the same day.
Right.
And I will never forget how emotional my mom was and my sister was, and frankly, I'm not going to lie, even myself.
Sure.
It was an emotional day for me. So I know that there's going to be a lot of emotions running through a lot of these players, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they go out on a high note. And it's going to be a challenge.
I was going to say, how do you balance that, though? There's an emotional aspect of it when they do the announcements beforehand. Everyone's crying. Mom and dad are on the field. And then you got to get them flipped around and ready to go out and compete once again. And you can't be over emotional going to do that.
Well, Pasta J told me a quote that you can win 2 games a year based solely off emotion.
Okay.
All right. We got 1 so far. So there's 1 left. It was 2 on emotion, 2 on talent, 2 on coaching.
Okay.
And then I think it was like the last 2 are a combination of all 3.
Sure.
That was when there was 10-game seasons. So his quote was a little outdated, but I think we got to be able to utilize our emotions.
Yeah.
To be honest, for all we've been through, I think that's got to be something that does guide us and direct us in this ball game.
In your 1 year here, you've gotten close to a lot of these guys, though.
I have, and really, I think our whole staff has. I think some of the time that I spent one-on-one with players, not just when we did that 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, but also just but there's been a lot of family deaths on our football team this year.
Yeah.
Even it feels like almost a couple a week, and
right.
Had a chance to sit down and talk about real life stuff with a lot of these players. Some of them are seniors, some of them are dealing with that even this week. So it is going to be emotional. I think just because of how we've really had to come together and have come together, it's going to be an emotional day.
Let's talk about the Utes of Utah. They're always, you and I were talking during a break here, what Kyle Whittingham has done. He's got such a solid program. I mean, every year you can kind of count on them. You know they're going to be very competitive. That's a program I think that, from a coaching standpoint, you got to look at and go, yeah, that's what everyone wants to build, right?
It is. And just even, the build, like when I was at Boise State, they were a WAC team.
Yeah.
We joined the WAC. They went to the Mountain West. And then just to see that through, I mean, people don't realize this about Kyle Whittingham. He's coached at the University of Utah since 1994.
Unreal.
When I was 12 years old, running up and down the sidelines of the Coliseum as a ball boy. This guy, he's a tremendous football coach. He's done a great job, obviously, at Utah. He understands the culture of the state of Utah, what makes that program tick, and just continually just reloads, and they have a program that is the model of continuity in all of college football.
And they're always, it seems like every year they're as tough and physical as virtually anybody you face.
Oh, I think the best preparation that we could have for Utah was what we saw last week.
I bet.
And that's what we saw on film against Washington. We saw a really physical football team. This team right here they have cornered the market. When I was at Stanford, the years that I coached at Stanford, I would say we cornered the market of physicality.
You were the bullies on the block,
and then we went and played in Salt Lake,
yeah.
and they took the crown from us.
Did they really?
No, they sure did. And we were ranked in the top. I think we were ranked in the top 5 or top 7. We were undefeated.
Yeah.
And they beat us physically, and so that everybody knows what is coming when you strap it up against the U. And we got to be prepared for it.
So the defenses. So this morning I'm sitting in my office and I'm kind of getting some stuff together for the broadcast this week, and I always look at last year's board that I made and then kind of compare it. And last year they were looked at as talked about having one of the best defenses in America. Well, their numbers almost haven't changed.
No.
I mean, they're very salty on it. What makes them so good over there?
Well, you think about it, too. Think about how much better the offenses are in Pac-12 right now. I mean, it's like the Pac-12 offenses last year, no offense, we're not good.
Right.
I mean, it was a bad year of Pac-12 offensive play because of the lack of quality quarterbacks. Really, I think the only one Jaden DeLaro was playing at Washington State, and Dorian Thompson-Robb, DTR, was playing at UCLA. Other than that,
right.
And Cam Rising was really the only quarterback in the league that was playing at an elite level. And that's their own guy, so they got a chance to see him every day.
Yep.
But for them to have comparable numbers when the conference got that much better offensively is really it's a testament to not just their system, but more to their players, how they've recruited, how they've developed, and just the mentality of physicality that they take on.
So what are the challenges when you face them on Saturday? What are the challenges for your offense on Saturday?
Obviously the trenches, the O-line, D-line play is going to be extremely important. Linebacker play on defense, we've got to play better to have a shot to go to line up against a team like this. They like to get into heavy sets. They like to pound the ball. Then they'll take shots down the field, and we got to be top down in our coverage, and we got to make sure that we match their physicality from our defensive standpoint. And then offensively, I'll be honest, they're hard to block.
Right.
People have struggled blocking them the whole year. You just have to be smart. You can't. Everybody wants us to throw the ball when we're in 3rd down and 10. Last time I checked, a strip sack fumble is certainly a worse outcome than giving yourself a chance to run the football.
Because guess what? The defense knows what's coming then too. Right?
They do,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so I think when everybody's saying, "Oh, why would you run the ball there?" I've converted a lot of 3rd downs in my career running the football.
Not a draw play or something
Absolutely.
like that, a little screener. Yeah. You think about it. What they did last week. They ended up losing to Oregon last week, but it was a heck of a college football game. They gave up 59 yards rushing to Oregon last week, which is a prolific rushing team. They've got 30 sacks this season, so very salty on that side of the ball. Flip to their offense. Cam Rising, you mentioned, it seems like he's been around forever. Mm-hmm. Talk about him as a quarterback.
The thing that people forget just because he's played in the red and white for so long is he was a transfer.
Texas.
Yeah. I mean it's funny. Almost every quarterback in the league is
nuts. Yep.
DTR and maybe Oregon State's quarterback Goldbrinson. I think everybody else is some form of a transfer. And I think Cam Rising, what I love about him as a player when I evaluate him just as a aficionado of quarterback play, toughness. I mean, the guy's got incredible grit. He's playing through some form of injury, pain, however you want to look at it, throughout most of this year. Last year he was fully healthy, but you would never know by how he goes about conducting himself.
Right.
He's got that presence on the field that everybody's looking for in a quarterback.
Their main running back, Tavion Thomas, it looks like a tight end, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He's 240 pounds.
Yep. And it's the bigger version of what we just saw with Washington.
Yeah.
Talapapa, I believe is his name, but obviously just a physical runner, patient, sees it, and then he can drop his pad level too for a guy that's got the size profile that he has.
Yeah. And we're going to have Rod Chance come up here in a few minutes, and also Nico Reed. A quick comment about each one of those guys. Rod Chance, what he's meant to you kind of during this whole transitionary period.
He's meant a lot. He's he and I actually crossed paths in Minnesota for a couple weeks.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
He was on his way out to Oregon. I was on my way in from Utah State. And just his intelligence, his what he's meant to us from a standpoint of developing coverages. I think even really the last couple weeks facing some of the best passing attacks in all of college football. Yeah. Granted, we've given up some rushing yards, so we've really shored up, I think, some of the coverage issues that existed earlier in the year, and that's a testament to Rod. He's stayed the course. He's fought through this. He's had a tremendous mentality and attitude towards the players, and he's been a joy to work with. So
it's one of the funny things about the coaching industry. If you haven't worked with somebody, just wait a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
You'll probably end up crossing paths at some point in time. It's nuts how guys. I mentioned somebody to a coach. He goes, 4 jobs ago I worked with him.
Oh, yeah.
We were together for a season or two.
No, it's real.
The back end of your defense, you talked about how that's been shored up. Early on this season, they were getting hit pretty hard. But those guys have grown up. Nico Reed's really come along, hasn't he?
Nico's a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, I love his approach to the game. I love, how he practices, how he communicates. People have gone after him. Yep. And, I think the greatest compliment that he's gotten was from one of my best friends that I've talked about a couple times at University of Oregon. It's like, I think that you guys have, top third of the conference, and Nico might be one of the better ones in the conference.
Really?
And obviously we're going to face a really, really good one this week.
Yeah.
In Utah's quarterback. Number one is, he is as physical and is as good on the ball. Like, you put that ball slightly inside, it's 6 points the other way. And,
right.
Nico's got that ability, even maybe he's not a 6'2" corner, but he plays like it.
Yeah.
And I respect him and his playmaking ability and just his approach.
That's one thing. You see a lot of great cover guys, but when a guy's got the ability to cover and that little bit of toughness in him, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, Nico's put his face in there. He's one of our better tacklers on the defense side of the ball. Every single game. Like, also just think about how many times he's had to fit something in the run.
Sure.
How many times somebody's gone after him, and he just keeps playing. I mean, there's never a flinch in his game.
What are the Buffaloes going to do for Thanksgiving? I know you got to get ready for a football game, so obviously that's first and foremost. But what's the team going to do?
Well, we have Thanksgiving dinner tonight as a team.
Hot dogs again or not?
No, that was an appetizer.
Okay.
To me, by far the best appetizer for
Sure.
turkey and stuffing.
I get it.
Hodgepodge. But so we're gonna get together tonight at 5:30 after all of our meetings, and we'll get together and talk about how thankful we are for each other and for our families, and then break some bread together as a family.
There you go. Eat the turkey, but make sure you do it well enough in advance to get the tryptophan out of your system, right?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, tryptophan. My dad always talks about it. I think it's just an excuse to take a nap. For me, I've never taken a nap after Thanksgiving dinner. My wife would actually tend to disagree.
I was going to say, I'm not sure you're telling the truth on that one. But hey, the game's coming up at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Mike, go out there and have a great time on Saturday. All right?
Sure will.
Right, appreciate
we're excited. One last time out there.
There you go. There's Mike Sanford, the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. It's the Utes and the Buffs on Saturday at 2. We'll hit the air at noon out on Franklin Field. Gary Barnett, Andy Lindahl, and yours truly. Hey, Buffs fans looking for a place to cheer on the Buffaloes? Join the Buff Nation at the official CU Watch Party locations in Colorado, the Schoolhouse in Arvada, and Blake Street Tavern in Denver. Rod Chance is going to join us next here on Buffs Primetime as we come to you from the Post Chicken and Beer in downtown Boulder. This is Colorado football from Learfield. Today's Coaches Show is brought to you by the Post Chicken and Beer with 7 Colorado Front Range locations. The Post brews delicious award-winning beers and fries up the crispiest, juiciest hot chicken around. Fried chicken and beer go together like black and gold football talk. Stop by the Post for all your game day provisions. Thank you to the Post for hosting us. Yeah, give them a big round of applause. They've done a great job all season long. We've already appreciated it. They've done a great job hosting us and taking care of us when we've been out here every week from 12:30 to 1:30. And again, the show airs tonight 7 o'clock on the Colorado Football Network, 8 o'clock on our flagship 850 KOA in Denver. Joining us out of the secondary, Rod Chance, coach for the Buffaloes. Welcome.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Great having you here. This has been the first time we've had you on the show since everything kind of. It's you and I were just talking during the break, Rod. I said with Mike was out here, anytime I've been around these kind of situations, everyone kind of jumps ship. You just said that despite all that's gone on, you've really enjoyed working with these kids, and there's been great camaraderie and energy between everybody on this team over the last few weeks.
No doubt. I think obviously the situation that transpired this season was tough for all parties involved. But we had a choice to make, a decision. We can make ourselves miserable, for the next 8, 9 weeks, or, we can choose some joy here and try to pour ourselves into our players and enjoy the opportunity that we do have. And it's been a weird season, but I really have enjoyed my players, probably more so than I have any other year.
Talk about the back end of your defense and how you guys, even though, the numbers maybe are what they are, but how you've seen growth out of that group over the last number of weeks.
I think obviously coming in here, I got here in January expecting to coach certain players, and those players are no longer here. And I knew then, okay, we got a task on our hands just in terms of getting those guys caught up because they hadn't played a lot of football. So I think, those guys had tremendous growth. I knew there would be some early jitters, some early mistakes. Taking your lumps if you would. Giving those guys some opportunity to gain some valuable experience so they can handle themselves not only within the scheme, but so they can believe in themselves confidently that they can operate, and handle the defense in and out of plays. So I've been very pleased with the guys that have been out there on the football field. They continuously got better every time they hit the grass.
Well, the thing about the position you coach, it's an unforgiving position, right? It's like being the Major League Baseball pitcher. You're standing the mound by yourself out there. You're on an island as you're a cornerback out there. The whole world sees the ball goes down to sideline, and it's mano a mano. If you make the play, fantastic. You're the hero. If you don't, you're the GOAT. It really is an unforgiving position for these guys.
It's easy if you ask everyone else. Just cover the guy and just keep.
That's all you got to do,
keep
right?
From catching the ball.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty in the position. If you have a certain level of confidence, a certain level of intestinal fortitude that takes on that type of challenge, that even though you may be at a disadvantage, that you're able to thrive and able to make plays. And there's a fun feeling. There's another level of making plays when you're at a disadvantage.
What is the number one? I mean, I guess, size and speed, those are the obvious answers. What's the number one thing that you look for? You say, I've identified a guy that I think can be a very good corner.
Obviously, you mentioned the size and speed and all of that stuff, plays into it. But I think the next thing I want to look at is mental, is IQ.
Is that right?
The way I teach the position, I don't teach it through the lens of one position. I try to teach them through the lens of the whole defense because I think that only helps them understand the defense themselves, but it also helps prepare them for the next level.
Sure.
And maybe they're able to make some money with their mind, before they're able to make some money, with their physical tools. So I've always approached it that way. So if we have a player that's a smart football player, he's a better football player. So, I just mesh well with those type of players that have a mental IQ that's high.
I'd have to think you have to have a guy that's got great, what's the word I'm looking for, mental strength, right? Because you're going to get beat every once in a while, right? You got great players across from you. They've got to be able to wash that off very quickly and just go on to the next play. So they can't be guys that kind of wallow in their pity, if you will. Correct.
A lot of people use the term a next play mentality. But I like to use the term this, man. You got to go out there because gunfighters get shot. Regardless. You're going to give up some plays and you're going to make some plays. And I think, touching that hot stove as a young player gives you the ability and experience to know what I can and cannot do, when I can take chances, when I cannot. So I think that's an ability to cut it loose. And, I think one of the things that we had not mentioned is just a level of competitiveness.
Sure.
That it takes, because like you mentioned, it's going to happen out there. You're going to get beat a few times, and it's not about the result of the play. It's more so about how you respond to that play, because if you respond the right way, the next time the play comes, hey, they might not throw that pass your way again. But if your response is not culture driven in terms of what we want to do in our program, you're going to have yourself out there a little bit more longer than you like to be, and now they're going after you continuously instead of that one play. So for us, we want to make sure that one play doesn't beat us twice.
Sure.
You got to move on, and gunfighters get shot, and we got to go out and make our plays.
I think I've joked with defensive coaches over the years about how you guys have had to change your mentality. You go back 15 years ago, and, you gave up 300 yards, and boy, that was kind of a tough game. Well, now 300 yards, that's a pretty darn good game. Correct. So the game has changed so much. You guys on the defensive side had to kind of change your perspective on things, haven't you?
Definitely. I think it comes in different phases in terms of, the categories in which the game has changed for me. I think the first area of change that happened is the number of snaps that are being played in college football today. That's with tempo, different rushing the field. All of these things are causing football. Back in the day, 50, 60 plays on defense was, a long day.
That was a lot.
Nowadays, if you play 60 plays on defense, everybody's fresh and feeling really good. So I think that's the first thing. The number of plays that you're out there is going to be more, thus more points and potentially more yardage, right, is going to be happening out there on the grass. That's one phase of it. The next phase would be the evolution of the RPOs, okay? Because from the football game that you and I learned when we were younger, as soon as that lineman fires off 1 yard off that line of scrimmage, that's considered a run. Now they have a 3-yard barrier in terms of what they do. So a lot of things in coaching that we've all learned since we were playing, our playing days are much different. And it's actually kind of curious to see how young men who are coaching now who come up in the RPO world continue to progress and develop their coaching tools and
it
the
always
mentality
evolves.
of the game. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I think it's that facet. One, the number of snaps that you're going to be playing. Two, all right, we're playing RPO football out here now, right? And then now everybody's throwing around the ballpark instead of 3 yards in the cloud of dust. So it's very fun to coach offense, very stressful to coach defense.
Yeah, I don't doubt that a bit. And we're going to have Nico up here in a moment. Talk about the growth you've seen from that young man.
Oh, man. That dude is a special dude, and I get in trouble if I say favorites, but he is truly one of my favorite players I've ever coached.
Really?
The combination of his humility, his work ethic, his accountability when he makes a mistake and owns up to it, and, you don't get that makeup, just really being a truly good person.
Right.
You don't get that. We've been in football a long time, and all of these football players aren't necessarily the best of people. At times we all have our character flaws when we're 19 or 21 years old.
Yeah.
But, he makes the game easy, regardless of what we've been going through this season. He hasn't ducked his head. He hasn't had said one negative thing about what's going on. And all he's done is continue to get better every single time he's been on the grass. We watch a lot of film, offense and defense, and I know Coach Sanford, is talking to offensive staffs across the conference, and, he's pretty well respected, in this conference. And I think that for him to be doing what he's doing on the grass in terms of his personal play and to not only not have, a consistent pass rush at times, you can only imagine what he can do, being able to take some chances if the pocket was a little bit hotter, for him. And rush and coverage works together, so we got to do our part in that in terms of coverage and making the rush hot.
Yeah.
But I think that the sky's the limit for who he is, not only for his skill set, because he can run, pick him up and put him down. He can change direction. He can flip his hips. He's got ball skills. He can do all of those things. But his intangibles combined with his skill set just really makes him potentially a really great player.
Is he one of those guys that's a sponge? I mean, that wants the information, is trying to glean from you all the time?
He asks pertinent questions that are important. He doesn't talk to talk.
Right.
We get guys in the meeting rooms that ask the questions just to be seen.
Right.
And the question that he asks are meaningful, which lets me know that he's understanding what he's doing. He's careful and intentional about his preparation. He has his iPad on his hip everywhere you see him. Sometimes he's not even paying attention to me talking because he's looking at his iPad so much. But I am very, very proud of that young man. Not only him, I'm proud of Caitlin as well, proud of Jason. But mentioning him specifically, his growth and his ability to believe in himself and believe in the techniques that I've been teaching him has been impressive.
Yeah, this whole group that you just kind of mentioned there, and some of the guys maybe aren't seeing snaps, they've got the potential to continue to move on. I mean, whatever happens from a staff standpoint, whether you're here or not, you like this group in terms of their future potential?
I think the only way you get better at playing football is playing football. So you got 3 young men in that room, potentially 4, with Nigel. 3 young men in that room that will be 2 will be true juniors. That's coming off a starting season. Another one will be a freshman that played a lot, played more than Nico and Caitlin have, as a freshman. So you have a good starting point of snaps on task. I think the next development for the younger guys will be stepping up in that weight room and understanding that, there's a physical toll that comes with this game so you can handle yourself and you can play the type of football that I want my guys to play, which is fast and physical. And just because we cover on the perimeter doesn't mean that we don't bring a certain level of physicality in the trenches, as well. So I think that's the next level for those guys as well. But I think the future is bright for that room right there because those guys are taking lumps and getting better right now. And I think as the talent around them get better and the pass rush and scheme get better around them, I think that, they continue to get better.
Well, the Buffaloes will take on the Utes of Utah. Keep an eye on that secondary. Some fun play. Rod, thank you very much.
Appreciate you, brother.
There is Rod Chance joining us, quarterbacks coach for the Buffaloes. Again, that's a 2 o'clock kickoff. Noon with the pregame right here on the Colorado Football Network as we continue here for the Post Chicken and Beer. The aforementioned Nico Reed's going to join us next for a player segment. This is Colorado Football from Learfield. Back one final time here on Buffs Primetime as we come to you for the Post Chicken and Beer. I'm kind of emotional about that. Our last show here of the season as we talk a little Buffs football. Joining us during our player segment, sophomore Nico Reed out of the secondary from Oakland, California. Boy, Rod Chance was talking you up a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
You got pretty close with him in 1 year?
Yeah, actually, my 707 coach is close to him.
Is that right?
So he had FaceTimed me and showed me my new coach, and it was Coach Chance. And so I kind of had a connection with him before, I came in, or before he came in spring ball. Yeah.
How did you become a Buffalo? I mean, you're out in Oakland, California. So how does Nico Reed become a Colorado Buffalo?
As I was getting offered in high school, my senior year, I was getting offers for both receiver and corner.
Okay.
But I actually wanted to play receiver, but I was getting more corner offers. So I guess Colorado had offered me a corner because they needed some bodies, and they was like, man, you could play here early. So I was like interested in them as Power 5. I think it was my best offer I had at the time, so had to take advantage of that.
You know, there's been that terrible thing they've always said about cornerbacks at what they are as receivers without hands. Is that true?
No, I feel like I have receiver hands, so.
Yeah, I never thought that was fair to secondary guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you play any other sports coming up? I mean, you're a football player, obviously. How about beyond that? Basketball, baseball?
I only played basketball when I was in elementary school.
Okay.
But middle school and high school, I didn't play anything but football.
All right.
I tried to run track, but COVID season had came. So
Sure. Yeah.
ended that.
You've enjoyed your time here in Boulder, though?
Yes, I have.
Got to be unique place, isn't it?
Yeah,
When you got
I like it.
Yeah. You didn't come from a real big family. You were telling me you got two older brothers. Were they athletes as well?
Yeah, I looked up to them because they played football a lot growing up. And just looking at them just made me inspired to play football, too. I wanted to play at a young age, at like 6 or 7, because of them.
You know, Rod was talking about the way you approach the game. You know, he talked about your physical attributes, and obviously that's important, but then the way you kind of study as well. When you're a cornerback and you're studying wide receivers, what are you looking at? What are you trying to determine? What are you trying to see that gets you ready for a game?
I like to break up like what routes certain people do, how they run the route, the releases, because not everybody is the same. Everybody has something different about them. I just try to dig deep into what is different about each receiver that I might face. Some might be quick, some might be slow. Got to play them differently each time. So yeah.
So all players have tendencies, don't they? Where
Yeah.
maybe they, you know, okay, they've got certain routes, but they do it a certain way, or their footing is a certain way. You kind of look for those kind of keys. You're getting a little sense of what they're attempting to do.
Yeah, I like so basically it goes off of formation too. So I like looking at what formation they're in and their their alignment and what routes they do out of certain formations and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's part of the game that a lot of times, most guys who come from high school, you didn't have to think about, did you? Right?
No.
Because back in high school, you're as big and fast and strong as anybody out there. You get here, and it becomes much more of a mental game, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's all mental in college because if your mental is not right, you might not go out there with the right mindset to play, or for that corner, you might not have the mindset to go lock up any receiver if you're thinking like, oh, yeah, these guys are kind of good. Yeah. But high school is like you're the best person on the team. So you're not really worried about anything. It's all mental. Was
there somebody you looked up to as a player, some NFL guy, receiver, cornerback that you looked up to and said that's a guy I want to emulate?
It's a lot of guys that's in college as of right now that I looked up to, but they play receiver. But I didn't really look at corners when I was coming out of high school because I didn't know I was going to play corner.
Have you asked every once in a while for coach if maybe you can have a couple of offensive snaps?
No, I didn't ask them, but I'm pretty sure they will want me over there.
Well, you never know, man. You might offer a little something, maybe a trick play here. There's kind of a unique package for
something.
Just you.
I just want a fade ball at least.
Yeah. Talk about the inside of the locker room and how it's been. I mean, the last few months and a couple of months, rather, weeks have been unique for you guys. This coaching staff's done a good job of kind of keeping you guys together, haven't they?
Yeah. The locker room, you wouldn't even think that we're like the record that we have or the season that we're having is that because the locker room is full of like joy and stuff like that, faith. We're still pushing to like push further into like as if we were having to win the season.
You bet.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool running up behind Ralphie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of a neat deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's kind of when that happens? I mean, kind of take somebody on the field with you when you run behind Ralphie. What's that like?
You're talking about when Ralphie runs on the field?
Yeah.
It's exciting because it's actually a real life animal running on the field, and it just makes the crowd go crazy. And the energy you get is like unreal. Like every time I run out there, it's I'm feeling like it's not real. Like I'm in a movie or in a game, and I'm just running down the field. I see Ralphie go in,
right,
and I just see like a big crowd. It's just.
Well, you get to do it one more time on Saturday this season. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, good luck on Saturday. Let's hear it for Nico Reed. Right, Buffalo in the secondary for the Buffs as they get set to take on Utah on Saturday. We wrap things up here for the Post Chicken and Beer in Boulder, and this is Colorado football from Learfield.